My name is Brooke Harrison, 28, financial analyst at Wellington Partners in Boston. When I agreed to cover the $10,200 for my parents' backyard renovation, I never imagined my own aunt would call to disinvite me from the celebration. I always thought family meant something different. Despite living on my own for years, I still drop everything when my parents need me. The renovation was supposed to bring us closer, not reveal how little they valued me. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding your worth within your family. I grew up in a typical middle-class neighborhood in suburban Massachusetts. My parents, Thomas and Margaret Harrison, always had high expectations for their children. From an early age, I was the responsible one, the achiever, the one who would make something of herself. My bedroom walls were plastered with honor roll certificates and academic achievement awards. I was never the most popular kid, but I was smart and determined. My educational journey was built on hard work and sacrifice. I studied late into the night throughout high school, maintaining perfect grades while juggling part-time jobs to save for college. When I earned a full scholarship to Boston University, my parents were proud but somewhat unsurprised it was expected of me, after all. I graduated with honors in finance, already lined up for an entry-level position at a respected firm. The financial relationship with my parents shifted when I landed my first real job at 22. Though I was just starting out, making barely enough to cover my own expenses, they began to see me as a financial resource. It started small, helping with the water heater replacement, contributing to property taxes when they were tight, covering the insurance deductible when Dad needed unexpected surgery. I never complained. They had raised me, and this was how I showed my gratitude. These small financial requests became a pattern. When my younger brother Ryan needed help with college expenses, I covered them. When their car broke down, I provided the down payment for a new one. Each time, the appreciation seemed to diminish. What began as profuse things evolved into casual acknowledgement, then expectation. Our family home in Lexington means everything to my parents. It's a modest 4-bedroom colonial with faded blue siding that's seen better days. Dad has always been too frugal to update it properly, preferring patchwork repairs to complete renovations. But it's where I grew up, where holidays happened, where memories were made. The backyard was always my mother's dream space, unrealized potential behind the house. Ryan, my brother who's 3 years younger, has always been the favorite, though nobody would ever admit it. He's more outgoing, more willing to challenge our parents, less concerned with achievement, and more focused on living life. Currently working as a high school gym teacher, he's happily married to his college sweetheart with a baby on the way. My parents adore him and give him a pass on financial contributions because he's starting a family. Aunt Diana, my mother's younger sister, lives about 30 minutes away and might as well be my mother's clone. They talk daily, share the same opinions on everything, and Diana has always reinforced my role as the responsible, helpful daughter. "Your parents are so lucky to have you," she'd say, while simultaneously reminding me of all the sacrifices they'd made for my success. With retirement approaching, my parents had started talking more about entertaining at home. My mother especially wanted to host extended family gatherings, Sunday brunches, and holiday celebrations. The backyard, which had been nothing more than patchy grass and my father's rusty grill for decades, had become her fixation. Despite my professional success, I'd worked my way up to senior financial analyst and had just received a substantial promotion. I still sought my parents' approval. I'd purchased a comfortable condo in Cambridge 2 years ago, invested wisely, and built a solid emergency fund. From the outside, I appeared to have everything together. But internally, I still measured my worth partially through my parents' validation. My recent promotion had finally given me some financial flexibility. After years of careful budgeting and modest living, I could afford some luxuries. I'd been planning a trip to Europe, my first real vacation in years. But when my mother mentioned the backyard renovation during our weekly Sunday dinner, showing me Pinterest boards she'd created full of string lights, stone patios, and outdoor kitchens, I saw an opportunity to finally do something that would make them genuinely happy, something they wouldn't take for granted. "Mom, what if I helped you with this?" I'd suggested, noticing how her eyes lit up at the idea of finally having the outdoor space she'd always wanted. "I got that promotion, and I'd love to put some of it toward making this happen for you and Dad." Little did I know that simple offer would lead to one of the most painful lessons of my adult life. The conversation about the backyard renovation started innocently enough during a Sunday dinner in early spring. Mom had made her famous pot roast, and as we finished the meal she began showing me pictures on her tablet. "Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a proper space for entertaining?" she sighed, scrolling through images of elegant outdoor living areas. "Your father and I aren't getting any younger. I'd love to host the family more often while we still can." Dad nodded along but quickly added his practical perspective. "Dreams are nice, Maggie, but we're on a fixed income now. Those fancy setups cost a fortune. I could see the disappointment in my mother's eyes. After decades of putting everyone else first, raising children, supporting my father's career, and maintaining our home, she rarely asked for anything for herself. The backyard had been her unfulfilled dream for as long as I could remember. What if we made it happen? I suggested. I could help with the costs. My promotion came with a substantial raise, and I'd love to do something special for you both. The transformation in their expressions was immediate. Mom's eyes widened with excitement, while Dad's financial concerns seemed to evaporate instantly. Within minutes, they were discussing possibilities that had apparently been off the table moments before: a stone patio, built-in seating, a pergola, even an outdoor kitchen area. We could host the family reunion this summer, Mom exclaimed. Everyone could see the house looking its best for once. Dad was already discussing logistics. We'd need to get started right away if we want it finished by July. The family anniversary party would be the perfect debut. I left that evening with a warm feeling. Finally, I was doing something meaningful for my parents that they couldn't dismiss or take for granted. This was substantial, a dream fulfilled, not just a bill paid or an emergency handled. The planning process began in earnest the following weekend. I took a day off work to accompany my parents to several landscaping companies and outdoor living specialists. We collected quotes, examined material samples, and discussed design options. Mom wanted natural stone rather than concrete pavers. Dad insisted on quality construction that would last for years. I encouraged them to choose what they truly wanted, not just the economical options. Get what you love, I told them. This is your dream space. We eventually settled on Evergreen Landscaping, a well-reviewed local company with a portfolio of beautiful outdoor living spaces. The initial design included a 500-square-foot natural stone patio, a cedar pergola, built-in seating with storage, landscape lighting, and a small but functional outdoor kitchen area with a built-in grill and refrigerator. The quote came in at $8,400, which seemed reasonable for the quality and scope. I met with John, the project manager, to finalize details and sign contracts. He walked me through the process, timeline, and payment schedule. I would make an initial deposit of $2,800 followed by progress payments as different phases were completed. The entire project was expected to take 6 weeks, putting completion in mid-June, perfect timing for the family celebration in July. As the project progressed, my parents' excitement grew, along with their demands. Mom decided the original lighting plan wasn't adequate and wanted to upgrade to a more expensive system. Dad thought the standard grill wasn't sufficient and selected a premium model. Each change incrementally increased the budget, but I approved them all. Seeing my parents so engaged and happy was worth every dollar. The timeline coincided perfectly with the planning for the family's 50th anniversary celebration, commemorating my grandparents' wedding, though they had both passed years ago. The extended Harrison family gathered every 5 years to honor them, and this year my parents had volunteered to host. It would be the perfect showcase for the new backyard. I visited the house weekly to check on progress, often bringing lunch for the workers and discussing details with John. Each time, the space looked more impressive. The stone patio was a work of art, with various shades of slate creating a natural mosaic. The pergola added height and definition to the space, and the built-in features were both beautiful and functional. My excitement grew alongside my parents. I imagined family gatherings where I'd casually mention, "Oh, I helped make this happen," and finally receive acknowledgement for my contribution to the family. Perhaps this substantial gift would change the dynamic, showing that I wasn't just the reliable daughter they could call for financial help, but someone whose generosity deserved recognition and inclusion. But even during these visits, I noticed concerning signs. Sometimes I'd arrive to find Aunt Diana there, discussing plans for the anniversary celebration with my mother. They would quickly change the subject when I approached. When I asked direct questions about the party, answers were vague. "We're still figuring out details," or "Nothing's finalized yet." I dismissed my concerns. After all, I was busy with work, often putting in 60-hour weeks while still making time for the renovation project. They were probably just avoiding burdening me with planning responsibilities. I couldn't have been more wrong. As May turned to June, the renovation transformed the once neglected backyard into a magazine-worthy outdoor living space. Each week revealed new progress: the stone patio completed, the pergola erected, landscape plantings taking shape around the perimeter. I took pride in seeing my financial contribution creating something beautiful and lasting. My weekly visits became a ritual. I'd arrive on Saturday mornings with coffee for everyone, inspect the progress, and discuss any adjustments with John. The workers knew me by name and appreciated the donuts I often brought along. It felt good to be involved, to watch this gift taking physical form. "Your parents must be thrilled with what you're doing for them," John remarked one morning as we reviewed the lighting installation. "Not many children would invest this much in their parents' home." I beamed with pride. "They've done so much for me. It's nice to give something back." The family anniversary celebration became a frequent topic at Sunday dinners. My mother would mention calls with relatives discussing who would be attending and from how far they'd travel. "Cousin Jessica is coming all the way from Arizona," she'd say. "And Uncle Paul confirmed yesterday, we haven't seen him in years." Whenever I asked about specific plans, the menu, schedule, or how I could help, the answers became increasingly evasive. "Don't worry about those details," Mom would say. "You're doing enough with the backyard. We don't want to burden you with planning too." One Sunday, I arrived to find Ryan and his wife Melissa already there. They quickly changed the subject when I entered the kitchen, and I caught the tail end of something about seating arrangements. "What about seating arrangements?" I asked casually. "Oh, nothing important," Mom replied. "Just thinking about the anniversary party logistics." Later, I pulled Ryan aside. "Is everything okay? I feel like I'm being left out of the party planning." My brother looked uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. "I'm sure they're just trying not to stress you out. You know how Mom gets with these events. Very particular." But the pattern continued. I'd overhear phone conversations that abruptly ended when I entered a room. My parents became secretive about their planning notebook, closing it when I approached. Aunt Diana was at the house more frequently, and she and my mother would exchange glances when certain topics arose. Meanwhile, the project costs continued to climb. The original $8,400 estimate had already increased to just over $9,000 with the upgrades and changes. Then my mother decided she wanted additional landscaping, flowering shrubs and perennial beds to soften the stonework. "It looks too harsh with just the patio," she explained. "We need color and texture." This addition pushed the budget to $9,800, but I approved it without hesitation. My parents' excitement seemed genuine, and I rationalized that after coming this far, we shouldn't compromise on the final details. My workload intensified during this period. Our firm had taken on a major new client, and as a senior analyst, I was handling significant portions of the account. 14-hour days became normal, yet I still made time for the renovation project, answering calls from contractors and making decisions about materials when needed. One evening, exhausted after a particularly grueling day, I received a text from my mother with yet another upgrade request: specialty outdoor furniture that would add nearly $1,000 to the already expanded budget. It would complete the space perfectly. She wrote, "The standard furniture just doesn't do justice to the beautiful work." I hesitated briefly, thinking of my postponed European vacation and the hours I was working to afford these continual additions. But then I thought of how happy my parents would be hosting the celebration in their perfectly appointed new backyard. "Go ahead and order it," I texted back. "I want everything to be exactly as you've imagined it." The total now stood at $10,200, far more than I'd initially planned, but still manageable with my savings. I told myself it was worth it for the recognition and appreciation I'd receive at the celebration, imagining my parents proudly telling family members about my contribution. In retrospect, the signs were all there: the hushed conversations, the evasive answers, Aunt Diana's increased presence, Ryan's discomfort. But I was too busy, too hopeful, too determined to finally earn my parents' genuine appreciation to see what was happening right in front of me. The final payment was made in mid-June, just as the project reached completion. The transformation was remarkable, from a neglected patch of grass to an elegant outdoor living space with natural stone, beautiful plantings, ambient lighting, and comfortable seating areas. It was everything my mother had dreamed of and more. "It's perfect," Mom said, tears in her eyes as we stood surveying the finished space. "Better than I ever imagined." Dad, not usually emotional, put his arm around me. "You did good, Brooke. Really good." In that moment, I felt that everything, the money, the time, the effort, had been worthwhile. Finally, I had done something that truly mattered to them. Something they couldn't dismiss or take for granted. I was completely unprepared for what would happen next. The backyard renovation was completed on a Thursday in mid-June, just 3 weeks before the planned family anniversary celebration. The final walkthrough with John from Evergreen Landscaping confirmed that everything was perfect, from the natural stone patio to the cedar pergola, from the ambient lighting to the lush new plantings surrounding the space. I stood in the center of this transformed area, feeling a profound sense of satisfaction. For once, I had provided something meaningful to my parents, not just financial assistance for necessities or emergencies, but something that brought beauty and joy to their lives. The $10,200 investment seemed entirely worthwhile when I saw my mother's face as she explored every detail of her new outdoor oasis. "I can't believe this is our backyard," she kept saying, touching the smooth cedar of the pergola posts, adjusting the new outdoor cushions, admiring the way the stone varied in color and texture. "It's like something from a magazine." Even my father, typically stoic about home improvements, seemed genuinely pleased. "Solid work," he commented, inspecting the construction with approval. "This will last for years." I left that evening feeling closer to my parents than I had in a long time. The project had created a bond, a shared experience of watching something beautiful take shape. I imagined the upcoming family celebration, relatives in this gorgeous new space, my parents proudly telling everyone how their successful daughter had made it all possible. The betrayal came 2 days later, on Saturday morning. I was enjoying a rare leisurely breakfast at my condo, savoring good coffee and scrolling through emails when my phone rang. Seeing Aunt Diana's name, I answered without hesitation. "Brooke, honey," she began, her voice casual. "I wanted to check about the guest list for the anniversary party. Your mom mentioned you might be bringing someone." "No," I replied, confused. "I'm not seeing anyone seriously right now. Mom knows that." "Oh," Aunt Diana paused. "Well, that simplifies things, I suppose." "What do you mean?" Another pause, longer this time. "Well, I thought you knew. The celebration is just going to be immediate family. Your parents, Ryan and Melissa, me and Uncle Jim, and your grandparents from your dad's side." The coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. "What are you talking about?" "This is the family reunion. Everyone's coming." "Oh no, honey. That's in September at the lake house. This is just a small dinner to mark the actual anniversary date." Very intimate. My mind raced, trying to process this information. But the backyard renovation, it was specifically for hosting the family celebration in July. That's what we've been planning for months. Well, yes. They'll certainly use the new backyard for that too. But the July dinner is just immediate family. I assumed you knew. You're so busy with work. And your parents didn't want to burden you with attending something so small when you've already done so much with the renovation. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't invited. I had spent over $10,000 creating a beautiful entertainment space for a celebration I wouldn't be attending. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly, my voice strangely calm despite the storm building inside me. "I've paid for the entire backyard renovation so my parents can host a family dinner that I'm not invited to." "Oh, Brooke, when you put it that way, it sounds terrible. Of course, they appreciate everything you've done. It's just that with Ryan and Melissa expecting and the grandparents getting older, they wanted something very small. I'm sure they meant to tell you. Maybe they assumed I had already mentioned it. How long have you known about this immediate family-only plan?" I asked, my voice now tight with controlled anger. Aunt Diana hesitated. "Well, since they started planning it. A couple of months ago, I suppose." The timeline was clear. They had known from the beginning, even before I offered to fund the renovation. My parents had deliberately kept me in the dark while accepting thousands of dollars for a space they planned to enjoy without me. "I have to go," I said abruptly. "Brooke, honey, don't be upset. I'm sure your parents meant to." I ended the call. For several minutes, I sat motionless at my kitchen island, the revelation washing over me in waves, every evasive answer about party details, every hushed conversation that stopped when I entered the room, Ryan's discomfort when I asked direct questions. It all made sense now. I called my mother. No answer. I called my father. Straight to voicemail. I sent a text to both of them. "Just spoke with Diana. Is it true I'm not invited to the anniversary dinner in the backyard I paid for?" 20 minutes later, my father's response appeared. "Don't be dramatic. It's just a small family dinner. We'll celebrate with everyone in September." Don't be dramatic. The dismissal stung worse than the exclusion itself. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of how hurtful their actions were, just a minimization of my feelings. I checked social media and found that Aunt Diana had already posted about the upcoming intimate family celebration, tagging my parents, Ryan and Melissa, my uncle, and even my second cousin Teresa who lived less than an hour away. Not immediate family only. Just broke free. The betrayal was complete. I had been intentionally misled by the people I trusted most, the people whose approval I had spent my entire adult life seeking. I had sacrificed my own plans, postponed my European vacation, and spent thousands of dollars to create a beautiful space for a celebration where I wasn't welcome. For the first time in my life, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of how my parents had treated me, not just in this instance, but in a pattern stretching back years. I was good enough to provide financial support, good enough to solve problems but not good enough to include. I sank to my kitchen floor and did something I hadn't done since childhood. I cried deep, racking sobs that came from a place of profound hurt and betrayal. For nearly an hour, I let the emotions flow, acknowledging years of seeking approval that was never fully given. When the tears finally subsided, something else emerged from the hollow ache in my chest. A quiet, steady resolve. A determination that this would be the last time I allowed myself to be treated this way. I picked myself up off the floor, wiped my eyes and began to formulate a plan. After the devastating phone call from Aunt Diana, I spent the remainder of Saturday in a fog of hurt and disbelief. I cycled through emotions: crushing disappointment, burning anger, hollow sadness. Unable to focus on anything else, my phone remained silent. No calls from my parents to explain or apologize. By Sunday morning, the fog had begun to lift, replaced by a clarity I hadn't experienced before. I called my closest friend, Natalie, who had witnessed my relationship with my parents for years. "They did what?" she exclaimed after I explained the situation. "Brooke, that's beyond inconsiderate. It's cruel. I keep wondering if I'm overreacting," I admitted. "Dad said not to be dramatic." "Classic gaslighting," Natalie replied firmly. "You spent over $10,000 on a renovation for a party you're not invited to. That's not being dramatic. That's having a normal human reaction to being used." Hearing someone else frame it so bluntly helped solidify my thoughts. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an oversight. It was a deliberate choice my parents had made while accepting my financial contribution. "What are you going to do?" Natalie asked. "I'm still figuring that out," I said. "But I know one thing. I'm done being taken for granted." After our call, I opened my laptop and pulled up my financial records. I had made payments to Evergreen Landscaping in 3 installments. The initial deposit of $2,800, a mid-project payment of $3,500, and the final payment of $3,900 just days ago. The project was complete. But I knew from my conversations with John that there were still outstanding payments to some of the subcontractors for specialty work like the lighting and irrigation systems. I also recalled the maintenance agreement I had established. A prepaid account of $1,200 for ongoing landscaping care throughout the summer and fall. This money was held in an escrow account with Evergreen, untouched until services were performed. Next, I researched my legal position. I had signed all the contracts as the financially responsible party. The agreements were between me and the various companies, not my parents. While the work had been performed on their property, I was legally entitled to modify or cancel any outstanding financial arrangements. The decision crystallized in my mind. I would not allow this pattern to continue. For years, I had given without boundaries, seeking approval that was never fully granted. This time would be different. I drafted a careful email to John at Evergreen Landscaping. "Due to unforeseen circumstances, I need to discuss modifications to our payment arrangements for the Harrison project. Please call me at your earliest convenience regarding the outstanding subcontractor payments and the maintenance fund." Then I sat back and considered the potential fallout. My parents would be furious. Family relationships might be permanently altered. But for the first time, I found myself prioritizing my own emotional well-being over my parents' expectations or approval. John called within the hour, concern evident in his voice. "Is there a problem with the work, Brooke?" I thought everyone was pleased with the final result. "The work is perfect," I assured him. "This is a personal matter. I need to know what payments are still pending and whether they can be canceled." John hesitated but explained that the final electrical and irrigation payments, totaling about $1,800, were scheduled to process on Monday. Additionally, the maintenance fund of $1,200 was held in a separate account. "I need to cancel those pending payments and freeze the maintenance fund," I said. My voice steady. "Can that be arranged?" After some discussion of logistics and a brief explanation that this was due to a family disagreement rather than dissatisfaction with the services, John reluctantly agreed to hold the payments. He would need written confirmation from me, which I promised to send immediately. "The maintenance fund can be frozen. No problem," he added. "Those services haven't started yet." I thanked him for his understanding and ended the call. Within minutes, I had drafted and sent the official request to cancel the pending payments and freeze the maintenance fund. A total of $3,000 would not be released. Next, I composed a brief, factual text to my parents. "I've canceled the remaining contractor payments and frozen the maintenance fund for the backyard. Since I'm not considered immediate family for the celebration, I no longer wish to financially contribute to it. We should talk when you're ready to have an honest conversation." I hesitated before sending it, my finger hovering over the button. This would cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. For a moment, I considered backing down, following the familiar pattern of putting my feelings aside to maintain peace. Then I remembered my father's dismissive text, "Don't be dramatic." I pressed send. Setting the phone down, I felt a strange mixture of anxiety and liberation. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I had established a clear boundary with my parents. I had prioritized my own emotional health over their expectations. The sensation was both terrifying and exhilarating. I spent the rest of Sunday preparing myself mentally for the confrontation that would inevitably follow. I made notes about patterns I had observed over years, instances where I had been taken for granted or excluded despite my contributions. I rehearsed calm responses to the emotional manipulation I anticipated. Most importantly, I clarified what I needed going forward: acknowledgement of my feelings, respect for my boundaries, and a relationship based on mutual consideration rather than expectation and obligation. When no response came from my parents that evening, I realized they might be choosing to ignore my message, hoping I would back down as I had so many times before. Or perhaps they were strategizing their approach, consulting with Aunt Diana or Ryan before responding. I slept fitfully, waking several times to check my silent phone. By morning, I had resigned myself to a longer standoff than anticipated. I prepared for work, determined to focus on the major client presentations scheduled for that afternoon. As I left my condo building at 7:30 a.m., I had no idea that by the time I returned that evening, everything would have changed irrevocably. Monday passed in a blur of client meetings and presentation preparations. I had silenced my personal phone, focusing entirely on work as a welcome distraction from the family drama unfolding in the background. It wasn't until 6:45 p.m., as I was gathering my things to leave the office, that I finally checked my messages. The screen displayed 39 missed calls, 15 from my mother, 12 from my father, 7 from Aunt Diana, 3 from Ryan, 2 from my uncle. Voicemail boxes were full on all accounts, text messages numbered in the dozens, their tone evolving from confusion to anger to desperate pleas. My mother's text began with disbelief. "What do you mean you canceled payments? Call me immediately." They progressed to anger. "This is completely irresponsible. The contractors are calling us. Fix this now." Finally, desperation. "Please, Brooke, we need to talk. I'm coming to your place." My father's messages were more direct. "You've crossed a line. The contractors are threatening liens on our property." Ryan's texts were the most measured. "Mom and Dad are freaking out. Whatever happened, maybe we can talk through it." I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what would come next. Rather than responding to any messages, I gathered my things and headed home, knowing a confrontation was inevitable and imminent. As I pulled into my condo's parking garage at 7:30 p.m., I spotted my mother's silver Volvo in a visitor's face. My stomach tightened. This would be happening sooner rather than later. I took the elevator to my floor, the familiar journey feeling strangely momentous. As the doors opened, I heard it, my mother's voice echoing down the hallway, calling my name repeatedly, her fist pounding on my door. "Brooke Elizabeth Harrison. I know you're getting home around now. Open this door immediately. We need to talk about what you've done." I paused at the corridor junction, watching for a moment. My mother, usually so conscious of appearances, was creating a scene in my upscale building, her normally perfectly styled hair disheveled, her expression frantic. My father stood a few paces behind her, arms crossed, his face set in the stern expression I'd known since childhood. I could have announced my presence, but something made me wait. I wanted to observe this unfiltered moment, to witness how they behaved when they thought no one was watching. My mother continued pounding and calling out, neighbors' doors opening briefly before closing again at the disturbance. After nearly 5 minutes, I finally approached, my footsteps quiet on the carpeted hallway. It was my father who noticed me first, touching my mother's arm to halt her shouting. "Finally," my mother exclaimed, turning to face me. "What have you done?" "The contractors called this morning saying payments were canceled. They're threatening to put liens on our house." I maintained a calm demeanor as I moved past them to unlock my door. "We should continue this conversation inside." Once the door closed behind us, my mother erupted again. "How could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you? The contractors said you froze all the remaining payments and the maintenance account. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" "I think we should all sit down," I said, placing my work bag on the counter and gesturing to the living room. "I don't want to sit down," my mother snapped. "I want you to fix this mess you've created. Call the contractors right now and tell them it was a mistake." I looked directly at her, then at my father. "It wasn't a mistake. I made a decision based on new information." "What information?" My father demanded. "That I spent over $10,000 renovating your backyard for a family celebration I'm not invited to." My mother's expression flickered between anger and discomfort. "Did Diana call you? This is ridiculous. It's just a small dinner, not the main event." "That's not how you presented it when I agreed to fund the renovation," I countered. "You specifically said it was for the family anniversary celebration, which I naturally assumed I'd be part of." "You're blowing this completely out of proportion," my father interjected. "The September gathering is the main event. This is just a small dinner, with everyone except me," I said quietly. "Ryan, Melissa, Aunt Diana, Uncle Jim, Grandma, and Grandpa Harrison. Even Cousin Teresa according to Facebook. Everyone but your daughter who paid for the backyard you'll be enjoying." A knock at the door interrupted us. When I opened it, Ryan stood in the hallway, looking uncomfortable. "I thought I might be needed," he said, stepping inside. I could hear Mom from the elevator. The dynamic shifted with Ryan's arrival. My mother moderated her tone, though her anger remained evident. "Ryan, talk some sense into your sister. She's canceled payments to the contractors because she's upset about not being invited to a simple family dinner." Ryan's eyes met mine, and I saw something unexpected. understanding. Actually, he said slowly, I can see why Brooke would be hurt. I was uncomfortable with the plan from the beginning. My mother looked betrayed. What are you talking about? Mom, you and Dad accepted thousands of dollars from Brooke for a backyard specifically for hosting family events, then planned the first event without her. That doesn't seem right to me either. The room fell silent for a moment. My father shifted uncomfortably while my mother's expression hardened. So you're both against us now, she finally said. After everything we've done for you both. And there it was, the familiar refrain that had shaped our family dynamic for years. The implicit obligation, the emotional debt we supposedly owed for being raised, educated, loved. This isn't about being against you, I said calmly. It's about recognizing a pattern that's been happening for years. I contribute financially whenever asked. I put your needs before my own. I seek your approval in everything I do. And still, when it comes down to it, I'm excluded from immediate family gatherings. You're being ridiculous, my mother insisted. We never asked you to pay for the backyard. You didn't have to ask. You knew I would offer once you showed me how much you wanted it. Just like you knew I would cover Ryan's college expenses and the down payment on your car and countless other things over the years. Ryan looked surprised. You paid for my senior year tuition? Mom said that came from their savings. Another uncomfortable silence fell over the room. We should focus on the immediate problem, my father finally said, his practical nature asserting itself. The contractors need to be paid. They're threatening legal action. The remaining balance is $3,000, I stated. You can cover that yourselves if this celebration is so important. I've already contributed over $7,000. We can't just come up with $3,000 out of nowhere, my mother exclaimed. I managed to come up with $10,000, I replied evenly. And I was planning a vacation with that money before I offered to help with your backyard. My father's expression shifted, calculations visibly running behind his eyes. We could postpone the dinner until September, combine the celebrations. Thomas, my mother looked shocked. Everything is arranged. People are coming from out of town. Then include Brooke, Ryan suggested. That was the original understanding anyway. My mother's resistance was telling. It's too late to change the plans now. It's not about the dinner anymore, I said quietly. It's about years of being treated as a financial resource rather than a daughter. It's about finally recognizing my worth and setting boundaries. Boundaries? My mother scoffed. Is that something your therapist taught you? We're family. There aren't supposed to be boundaries. That's exactly the problem, I replied. You expect unlimited access to my resources, financial, emotional, practical, without offering the same in return. You exclude me when it's convenient but expect me to contribute without question. Ryan moved to sit beside me on the couch, a physical show of support that nearly broke my composure. She's right, Mom. You and Dad do treat Brooke differently. You expect more from her and give her less credit. My father, ever the pragmatist, saw that the conversation was veering away from the immediate financial issue. What exactly do you want, Brooke? For us to pay you back? I don't want repayment, I said, meeting his gaze steadily. I want acknowledgement. I want respect. I want to be treated as an equal member of this family, not just the reliable daughter you call when you need something. My mother's anger seemed to deflate slightly, replaced by defensive confusion. We've never treated you as less than family. Everything we've done has been for you kids. Then why exclude me from a family celebration? Why accept thousands of dollars for a renovation I wouldn't be invited to enjoy? For the first time, my mother had no immediate retort. She looked to my father, who was uncharacteristically silent. Ryan filled the gap. I think we all need to acknowledge that there's been a pattern here. Brooke has always been expected to be the responsible one, the achiever, the provider. I've benefited from that too, and I haven't always appreciated it. The admission from my brother opened something in the room, a possibility for honest conversation that had never existed before. I don't want to damage our family, I said. My voice softer now, but I can't continue in the same pattern. I need things to change. My father, ever practical, finally spoke. What specifically needs to change, Brooke? It was the first time he had asked what I needed rather than telling me what was expected. I need my feelings to be considered. I need to be included as true family. Not just when it's convenient or when something is needed from me. I need acknowledgement of my contributions rather than expectation. And, I need you both to recognize when you're treating me unfairly. The room fell silent as my parents absorbed these requests. They seemed simple, almost obvious requirements for any healthy relationship. Yet, they represented a fundamental shift in our family dynamic. And, the contractors, my father finally asked. I'll release the maintenance fund, I conceded. But the final payment should come from you. Consider it your investment in the celebration you're planning. My mother started to protest, but my father placed a hand on her arm, silencing her. That seems fair, he said, surprising everyone in the room. We should have been transparent about the celebration plans from the beginning. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of the larger pattern, but it was a start, perhaps the first time my father had conceded any wrongdoing in my adult life. As the confrontation wound down, tentative plans were made. My parents would cover the remaining contractor payments. The celebration would be reconsidered, though no firm commitments were made about my inclusion. But something fundamental had shifted. For the first time, I had stood my ground without backing down, and my family had been forced to listen. As they prepared to leave, Ryan hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. "This has been a long time coming." My mother remained stiff and somewhat distant, struggling to adjust to this new reality where her reliable daughter had established boundaries. My father, ever practical, seemed to be calculating the implications of this new family dynamic, but as I closed the door behind them, I felt a profound sense of relief and clarity. Whatever came next, I had finally advocated for myself. I had named the pattern that had shaped our relationships for years, and I had taken the first step toward building something healthier. The confrontation had been painful, but necessary. Now the real work of reshaping our family relationships could begin. The days following the confrontation were eerily quiet. No calls from my mother, no practical check-ins from my father. The silence was both unsettling and liberating, a strange new territory in our family landscape. I released the maintenance fund as promised. Emailing John at Evergreen Landscaping with the authorization, "The family situation is being resolved," I wrote, thanking him for his patience during an awkward situation. His reply was professional but warm, expressing hope that everything would work out. 3 days of silence stretched into a week. I focused on work, putting my energy into finalizing the major client presentation that had been overshadowed by family drama. My team's proposal was accepted, bringing a significant new account to our firm and earning me recognition from senior management. In the past, I would have immediately called my parents with the news. This time, I celebrated with colleagues instead, enjoying dinner at an upscale restaurant where we toasted success without family complications. The first contact came unexpectedly from Ryan, who invited me to lunch the following Saturday. We met at a quiet cafe near my condo, the kind of place where conversations could happen without interruption. "How are you holding up?" he asked once we were seated. "Better than expected," I admitted. "It's strange not having the usual family check-ins, but also peaceful." Ryan nodded. "They're struggling with it. Mom, especially. I don't think she's ever had to consider your perspective before. Have they said anything about the celebration?" "That's partly why I wanted to meet," Ryan said, looking uncomfortable. "They've postponed it. Dad told everyone there were landscaping issues that needed to be resolved." I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. Well, he's not wrong. "Listen, Brooke." Ryan leaned forward, his expression serious. "I need to apologize for my part in all this. I've known for years that they treat us differently, and I've benefited from it without ever acknowledging it. Even with the tuition, I had no idea you covered my senior year." His sincerity touched me. "You were just filling the role assigned to you. Same as I was." "Maybe, but I could have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry it took this blow-up for me to support you." This unexpected alliance with my brother felt like the first positive outcome of the confrontation. A relationship based on mutual understanding rather than prescribed family roles. We talked for nearly 2 hours, comparing experiences growing up under our parents' different expectations. Ryan admitted feeling less pressure to achieve but more dismissed when he did accomplish something. I confessed the exhaustion of being the reliable one, always putting family needs before my own. "They're not bad people," Ryan concluded as we prepared to leave. "Just set in patterns they've never had to examine." "I know," I agreed. "I don't want to lose my relationship with them. I just need it to be healthier." The first direct contact from my parents came the following day. A text from my father asking if we could meet at their house to discuss things calmly. I agreed, suggesting Sunday afternoon. Driving to my parents' home felt like visiting a familiar place that had somehow been fundamentally altered. The house looked the same: blue siding, white trim, neatly maintained lawn, but my relationship to it had changed. My father answered the door, his greeting awkwardly formal. "Brooke, thanks for coming." He led me through to the kitchen where my mother sat at the table, her posture stiff, eyes revealing evidence of recent tears. "Would you like something to drink?" he offered. "I'm fine, thanks." An uncomfortable silence settled over the kitchen. Through the window, I could see the newly renovated backyard, beautiful, complete, and the source of our current estrangement. My father finally broke the silence. "We've been doing some thinking since our discussion at your place." I waited, allowing him to continue without jumping in to ease the discomfort as I normally would have. "I want to apologize," he said, the words clearly difficult for him. "Not including you in the celebration while accepting your financial contribution was wrong. I should have seen that." The directness of his apology surprised me. My father rarely admitted error, preferring to move past conflicts without addressing them directly. "Your mother and I have talked at length about the patterns you mentioned. I can't say we agree with everything you said, but we recognize that we've perhaps taken your generosity for granted." My mother remained silent, her eyes fixed on her clasped hands. "Mom?" I prompted gently. She looked up, her expression a mixture of hurt and confusion. "I don't understand why you're so angry. Everything we've ever done was for you and Ryan. We never asked you to give us money." "You didn't have to ask directly," I explained. "The expectation was clear, and I wanted to help. That's not the issue. The issue is being treated as a resource rather than a daughter. Being excluded from a family event after contributing so much to make it possible. We didn't mean to hurt you," she insisted. "I believe that," I acknowledged. "But impact matters more than intention. And the impact was hurtful." Another silence fell. Less tense than before but still weighted with unresolved emotions. "We've postponed the celebration," my father said eventually. "We're planning to combine it with the September gathering. Everyone will be there. Including you, of course." It was a practical solution, typical of my father, addressing the immediate issue without necessarily tackling the underlying patterns. But it was a start. "I appreciate that," I said. "But this isn't just about one event. It's about our relationship moving forward." "What do you want from us, Brooke?" my mother asked, an edge of frustration in her voice. "I want what everyone wants from family: love, respect, consideration. I want my contributions to be appreciated rather than expected. I want to be included rather than taken for granted." My father nodded slowly. Those seemed like reasonable requests. My mother's resistance was softening, though not entirely gone. "I still think you overreacted with the contractors." "Perhaps," I conceded. "But it was the first time I'd set a boundary instead of simply giving in. I'm not proud of how it happened, but I don't regret standing up for myself." We talked for nearly 2 hours, covering ground we had never explored as a family. There were difficult moments, old patterns reasserting themselves, defensive reactions on all sides. But there were also breakthroughs, acknowledgments of long-standing dynamics, recognition of how roles had calcified over time. By late afternoon, we had reached a tentative new understanding. My parents had agreed to be more mindful of how they treated me compared to Ryan. I had promised to communicate my feelings directly rather than suppressing them until they exploded. We had all committed to working toward a healthier family dynamic. As I prepared to leave, my mother finally offered the words I had been waiting to hear. "I'm sorry we hurt you, Brooke. I never saw how our actions might make you feel excluded or used. I just thought, that's what family does for each other." "Family does support each other," I agreed. "But it should go both ways, and it should include everyone equally." She nodded, reaching out to squeeze my hand briefly before turning away, emotions clearly overwhelming her. The following weeks brought subtle but significant changes. My mother called just to check in without requests or expectations. My father sent a heartfelt email thanking me for making us see what we couldn't see ourselves. Ryan and I spoke more frequently, our relationship evolving beyond prescribed family roles. The September celebration, when it finally occurred, was genuinely inclusive. My contribution to the backyard was acknowledged publicly by my father, who raised a toast to Brooke's generosity and vision in creating this beautiful space for our family. My mother had included me in the planning process, seeking my input on menu choices and seating arrangements. Most importantly, I attended as a valued family member, not merely the reliable daughter who had funded the venue. The physical space that had been the catalyst for our conflict became the setting for a new beginning. In the months that followed, our family relationships continued to evolve. There were occasional slips into old patterns, requiring gentle reminders and course corrections, but the fundamental dynamic had shifted. I had established boundaries that were increasingly respected. My parents had begun to see me as an adult with legitimate needs and feelings rather than simply a resource to be called upon. For my part, I learned that standing up for myself didn't have to mean cutting ties or creating permanent rifts. It meant having difficult conversations, weathering uncomfortable emotions, and committing to building healthier relationships on the other side. The European vacation I had postponed finally happened the following spring, a gift to myself for having the courage to change long-standing family patterns. From a cafe in Paris, I sent my parents a postcard with a simple message: "Thank you for learning and growing with me. Love, Brooke." The journey wasn't over. Family dynamics built over decades don't transform overnight, but we had taken the crucial first steps towards something healthier, more balanced, and ultimately more loving. As I reflect on this experience, I realize that sometimes the most profound gifts we can give ourselves are boundaries, self-respect, and the courage to disrupt unhealthy patterns, even when it's uncomfortable. True family means mutual respect, consideration, and love, not one-sided giving or taking for granted. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members who took you for granted? How did you handle it and what was the outcome? Please share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if my story resonated with you. Remember, setting healthy boundaries isn't selfish, It's necessary for authentic relationships to flourish. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage in your own.